today we will do redox. So what do you know about redox?
There is the oxidation and reduction.
Yes. Anything else?
Then there is the hydrogen and oxygen. Is it?
You just tell me whatever you know so you know where you are.
I
Mm.
cannot.
Okay, so you need some background here. Do you know about the charges and the valency of atoms and ions and
Yeah,
for example, nitrates, they have a certain formula.
3 2 minus.
We have a few ions. Let's check if you are fine with those first. Okay, sulfate, then we have nitrate, then we have carbonate, then you have hydroxide. Okay, this five. Can you give me the formulas?
Sulfate is SO4 2 minus, right? Nitrate is NO3 minus. Carbonate is CO3 minus.
2 minus.
Hydroxide is OH minus.
Ammonium.
NH4 plus.
Okay, so you're more or less fine. So we shall start. So what you gave me, what you attempted to give me was the definitions of oxidation and reduction.
Yeah.
Then, okay, so you need to know of the definition of oxidation and reduction in terms of oxygen or in terms of hydrogen. Then you need to know the definition of oxidation reduction in terms of electron transfer. Then part C, you need this one, right? In the syllabus, it's not there, but I see a lot of such questions floating around in papers. So I will just continue to go through. So this one is to identify which reactions are redox and then in which definition and of which reactions are not redox. And then the last one is to test for oxidizing and reducing agent.
Okay.
So these are the things you need to know. So if you study and revise, you revise along these lines. So there is four definitions, one in terms of oxygen. So if it's a reaction or a substance is considered oxidized if it gains oxygen. So if we look at this reaction, so you see sodium on the left hand side is the reactants, then right hand side is the products. So on the reactant side, you will see that sodium and oxygen will react with each other. Then the outcome is you get sodium oxide. So you see sodium, you compare before and after, you will see that sodium obviously gained some oxygen.
Yes.
So we will say that sodium is oxidized, or we say that in this reaction, oxidation took place to sodium. Can? So you look at before, you look at after. So reactant, product, reactant, you compare.
Yes.
So then in terms of oxygen, a substance is reduced if it loses oxygen. So we have an example again. So now we look at copper. Copper oxide here. This is before and copper is after. So we see that there is an obvious loss in oxygen. So copper oxide has lost its oxygen. Then it became copper metal.
Yeah.
So we say that copper oxide is reduced to copper metal.
Okay.
So what about hydrogen?
Hydrogen is oxidized because it gains the oxygen.
Yes. So this is oxidized. Question 1. So you have to state and explain which substance are being oxidized and reduced. Looks familiar, huh?
The copper oxide is reduced and the hydrogen is oxidized.
So notice there's two questions here. Number 1, state. 2, explain.
Since the copper oxide lost oxygen is oxidized, right?
Since copper oxide has lost its oxygen and become copper metal, then copper oxide is reduced.
Okay.
You type it out.
Then for the hydrogen is it gains an oxygen to form H2O, right?
Yeah, so it is oxidized. Answers are only for reference sake. It may not be exactly 100% correct, as in the phrasing wise. This is a different question. Somewhat different.
The magnesium is oxidized to form magnesium oxide.
So you have to say it gains oxygen and
It gains oxygen and it becomes magnesium oxide.
so it's oxidized. Then
the H2O is reduced as it loses its oxygen atom to form
and become hydrogen. So now we go to hydrogen. So the definition of hydrogen is that if if a substance is oxidized, then it loses hydrogen.
The substance is oxidized, then it's hydrogen.
Yeah. So if you notice, it's the reverse of the oxygen definition.
Hydrogen sulfide loses hydrogen.
So you see earlier on,
Yeah.
this one, right? Is oxidation when it gains oxygen. Then it's reduction if it loses oxygen. So if you can remember the hydrogen definition as the reverse of oxygen. So substance is oxidized if it loses hydrogen.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So in this chapter, they will always ask you to identify which one is oxidized, which one is reduced. So we compare. So hydrogen sulfide becomes sulfur. So in the process, what happens is it loses its hydrogen.
So it reduces. No, so it's
Yeah. So hydrogen sulfide loses hydrogen and becomes sulfur. So it is oxidized. Okay. So then what about the other one?
The other one is reduced because it gains hydrogen.
So chlorine reduces because it gains hydrogen.
Okay.
Okay, then this one again same. You will see chlorine taking in hydrogen and become HCl.
Yeah, hydrogen.
Now this one.
So I think it's fluorine, right?
This is fluorine. Fluorine becomes this.
So it is reduced. The fluorine is gains hydrogen, therefore it's reduced to form hydrogen
Fluoride.
fluoride.
Hydrogen fluoride. Is it so?
Then the H2O loses hydrogen to therefore it's oxidized to form oxygen.
Yeah, so it's quite easy to identify